They say soulmates don't just cross paths, they collide. But what if I told you that collision you're calling heartbreak was actually alignment? What if I told you the delay wasn't denial, it was divine direction? What if what felt like a crash was God creating a connection? You didn't just bump into them. You didn't just notice them. They didn't just show up one day and stay. No, something shook when they entered your life. Something shifted. Something in your spirit collided with something in theirs. And even if you couldn't explain it, you felt it. You ever been in a car accident? Not just a fender bender, but one of those collisions where everything stops, your heart drops, time slows down, and for a second, you're not sure what just hit you. That's what it feels like when you collide with the person your soul has been praying for, even if your lips haven't. We don't like the word collision because it sounds messy, it sounds painful. But let me tell you something. When God designs a collision, it's not meant to destroy you, it's meant to deliver you. Because collisions in the kingdom are not accidents, they are assignments. You've been asking God to bring the right person into your life, but you thought it was going to be smooth, easy, soft, gentle. You thought it was going to come with perfect timing, with flowers and flawless compatibility. But God said, no, I'm not just going to let them walk into your life casually. I'm going to make them collide with your calling, because some of us are too deep in our routine to be awakened by something subtle. Sometimes it takes a collision to stop us from going in the wrong direction, to snap us out of unhealthy cycles, to make us notice something that's been right in front of us, but we've been too distracted, too wounded, or too used to dysfunction to see it clearly. Let me make it real for you. Maybe you met someone during a chaotic time in your life. You weren't looking for anyone. You were barely holding yourself together. Maybe you just came out of a toxic relationship. You had walls up, trust issues, heart heavy. But when they showed up, it was like everything stopped. Not because they fixed everything, not because they had all the answers, not because the chemistry was just right, but because something in them collided with something in you. And it didn't feel like ease, it felt like awakening. They didn't enter your life to make it easier. They entered your life to make it. They came in like a wrecking ball, but not to destroy your heart. To tear down everything you built on insecurity, to strip away the fake confidence, to crash through the walls you told yourself were boundaries, but were actually just fears dressed up like wisdom. God sent a collision, not a connection. Because connection is cute, but a collision is a calling. Think about it like this. When two tectonic plates collide, they don't just break, they create mountains. Something massive rises from the crash. Something unshakable is born from that pressure. That's what happens when soulmates collide. And yes, it's uncomfortable, because a divine collision exposes what's out of place. You might feel resistance. You might feel shaken. You might feel like you're being cracked open emotionally, mentally, spiritually. But that's not destruction, that's transformation. See, some of you met your soulmate and thought the chaos meant they weren't the one. You ran because it didn't feel like the fantasy. But hear me, faith doesn't always feel like a fantasy. Sometimes it feels like friction. You think you're breaking, but you're actually being rebuilt. Think they're the problem. But God is using the relationship to reveal the parts of your heart you never let Him touch. Maybe they challenged your pride. Maybe they called out your inconsistencies. Maybe they saw your potential and wouldn't let you settle, and it scared you. Because when you're used to people who play it safe, the one who pushes you will feel like a threat. But God doesn't bring people into your life to keep you comfortable. He brings them to collide with your complacency. The one who collides with you isn't just there for dates and dreams. They're there to dig, to disrupt, to disturb the things in you that have been asleep for years. They don't just see you, they see through you, through the mask, through the defense mechanisms, through the strong, independent front you show the world. And when that kind of person shows up, you won't just be impressed, you'll be impacted. Let me say this to you like you're in the front row of a Sunday service and the Spirit is all over this moment. Don't walk away from a collision just because it's loud. Don't reject the person God sent just because they cracked something open in you. You've been praying for a soulmate, but God is trying to give you a soul mirror, someone who reflects the parts of you that still need healing, someone who reveals the version of you God sees, not the one you've been performing. And to do that, He couldn't let them just pass by quietly. He had to make sure you collided, because some of the best love stories don't start with butterflies. They start with a bang. You ever felt something before you could explain it? Like your spirit was ahead of your schedule? That's what it feels like when your soul recognizes someone before your mind understands what's happening. It's not logic, it's not checklist compatibility. It's not do they check the right boxes, it's deeper. It's quieter, it's a whisper in your chest before a thought in your head. It's recognition without reason. You don't even know them that well yet, but something in you knows them. You're not in love, but your soul is already leaning in. You're not even dating, but there's a peace when they're near. You can't explain it, and you're not supposed to. Because this isn't about reason, it's about revelation. We've trained ourselves to analyze everything. We want signs and patterns, logic and timelines. But the Spirit doesn't operate on spreadsheets. It speaks in sensation, in discernment, in peace, in stillness. It speaks when the noise of your past is silenced long enough for you to feel something that doesn't come from the surface, but from the source. Let me bring this to life for you. Have you ever met someone and immediately felt calm, like your nervous system recognized safety before your brain could catch up? It wasn't about what they looked like or what they did for a living or how charming they were. It was about something unseen. You were used to being guarded. You had trust issues. You weren't even open to love like that. But then they walked in, and instead of triggering your trauma, they felt like a place to rest. Like breathing became easier. Like you didn't have to perform anymore. That's not coincidence. That's not butterflies. That's not chemistry. And I know someone reading this right now is trying to talk themselves out of something God is trying to talk them into, because it doesn't make sense, because it's too fast, because it's too strong, because it came at the wrong time. Let me help you with something. Sometimes what looks like the wrong time is actually God's right moment. Your spirit is responding to something your future already needs, and your brain is just playing catch up. You ever walk into a room and sense tension before anyone says a word, or meet someone and instantly feel like you've known them forever? That's not superstition. That's spiritual sensitivity. That's your discernment working. I remember a girl once told me, I knew he was different because I didn't feel like I had to shrink around him. I didn't have to hide my ambition. I didn't have to be less. I didn't even feel pressure to be perfect. I could just be. That's soul recognition. You don't need a 5-year plan, a Pinterest board, or even the perfect romantic setting. When your soul recognizes someone who is aligned with your purpose, it's like every part of you exhales. You stop bracing for pain. You stop performing for acceptance. You stop pretending to be okay. That doesn't mean everything is easy. It doesn't mean there's no work, but it does mean the foundation is peace, not pressure. The beginning is clarity, not confusion. And I want to speak this into someone right now. Stop dismissing what you feel just because you can't explain it. Stop waiting for your brain I remember a girl once told me, I knew he was different because I didn't feel like I had to shrink around him. I didn't have to hide my ambition. I didn't have to be less. I didn't even feel pressure to be perfect. I could just be. That's soul recognition. You don't need a 5-year plan, a Pinterest board, or even the perfect romantic setting. When your soul recognizes someone who is aligned with your purpose, it's like every part of you, you stop bracing for pain. You stop performing for acceptance. You stop pretending to be okay. That doesn't mean everything is easy. It doesn't mean there's no work, but it does mean the foundation is peace, not pressure. The beginning is clarity, not confusion. And I want to speak this into someone right now. Stop dismissing what you feel just because you can't explain it. Stop waiting for your brain to validate what your spirit already confirmed, because when your soul knows, it's not noisy, it's not chaotic, it's not desperate, it's not begging for attention or fighting for affection. It's a quiet pull, it's a settledness, it's a still, small voice that says, this feels like home. That's how God moves. He doesn't always shout, He whispers. He doesn't always give evidence. Sometimes He gives encounters. The problem is we've been so conditioned by trauma, drama, and fantasy that we overlook the real thing when it finally shows up, because it doesn't come wrapped in fireworks. It comes in peace, in presence, in consistency. So here's the challenge. Can you trust what you feel before you fully understand it? Can you let your spirit guide you without needing a detailed explanation? Can you receive the gift of someone who feels like home even if you don't know what the future holds? Because here's the truth. The person your soul recognizes will not always come with instant answers, but they will come with undeniable alignment. And if you wait until it makes sense, you might miss the moment it made purpose. So listen, don't let your trauma mute your discernment. Don't let your logic talk you out of what your heart has already witnessed. And don't let fear rob you of something God has already confirmed in your spirit. Because when God speaks to your soul, it doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be fireworks. It comes in peace, in presence, in consistency. So here's the challenge. Can you trust what you feel before you fully understand it? Can you let your spirit guide you without needing a detailed explanation? Can you receive the gift of someone who feels like home even if you don't know what the future holds? Because here's the truth. The person your soul recognizes will not always come with instant answers, but they will come with undeniable alignment. And if you wait until it makes sense, you might miss the moment it made purpose. So listen, don't let your trauma mute your discernment. Don't let your logic talk you out of what your heart has already witnessed. And don't let fear rob you of something God has already confirmed in your spirit. Because when God speaks to your soul, it doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be. We live in a world that keeps telling you to find the one who completes you. It sounds romantic, doesn't it? Like something straight out of a movie. You're walking through life incomplete, broken, missing pieces, and suddenly this one perfect person enters your life and completes the puzzle. But let me tell you something. You are not a half waiting on a whole. You are not walking around unfinished. You are not a broken vase that someone else is supposed to glue back together, because God never created you to be completed by another person. He created you to be complemented by the right person. There's a big difference. Completion implies that without them, you're not enough. But complementing says, I was already enough, but with you, I can go even further. We get ourselves into all kinds of unhealthy relationships because we believe we're missing something. And that belief will make you desperate for connection instead of discerning with it. It will make you settle for attention instead of alignment. And before you know it, you'll be begging someone to heal a wound they didn't create. Let's get real for a minute. How many times have you caught yourself thinking, if I just find the right person, I'll finally be happy. If I get married, I'll finally feel worthy. If they love me, I'll finally believe I'm enough. But here's the truth. If you don't feel whole without them, you won't feel whole with them. Because no one can pour into a heart that's leaking validation. You can't use love as a bandage and expect it to become a foundation. Think about it in daily life terms. You ever try to carry something heavy, like a box of groceries, and you're struggling to, and not just can't. There's no symptom. Lift it, then someone walks up and says, let me help you. They don't complete you. You already had the strength to carry it, but now that person shares the load. They complement your strength. They make the journey lighter, not because you were weak, but because they were willing to walk with you. That's what a soulmate is supposed to do. Not complete your identity, not fix your brokenness, not rescue you from your past, but to walk beside you while you live in your purpose, to strengthen you when you're tired, to cheer for you when you doubt yourself, to speak truth when your mind is clouded with lies. They don't show up with all the answers. They show up with presence, with faith, with alignment. And that's more powerful than perfection ever could be. But if you go into a relationship expecting someone else to complete you, you'll make them a god in your life. You'll place the weight of your worth on their shoulders. And when they inevitably disappoint you, because they're human, you'll fall apart, not because they left, but because you made them your source of identity. Let me be clear. Only God can complete you. Only God can heal you. Only God can fill the empty places. And when you get full in Him, when you know who you are, whose you are, and what you carry, then and only then can you recognize the person who's called to complement that strength. That's when you stop needing someone to save you and start partnering with someone who sees you. They see your scars and don't flinch. They see your dreams and don't shrink. They see your fire and don't try to tame it. They fan it. And when that happens, it's not two broken people trying to hold each other together. It's two whole people walking side by side, building something bigger than themselves. You want to attract someone healthy? Then do the work to get whole. You want a relationship that lasts? Then stop looking for someone to fill the gaps and start becoming someone who overflows. Because when you love from a place of fullness, you don't manipulate people to stay. You don't beg them to love you. You don't lose yourself trying to keep them. You love freely. You give deeply, and you receive without fear. So today I want you to release the lie that you're waiting for someone to complete you. You're not missing anything. You are not half a person. You are not broken beyond repair. You are becoming. You are rising. You are healing. You are whole. You ever notice how real love doesn't always show up dressed in perfection? It rarely walks in with grand gestures, flawless timing, and picture-perfect plans. No. Sometimes it enters your life in the middle of your mess while you're still putting broken pieces back together. And the most unexpected thing happens. They stay. Because real soulmates don't just show up when it's convenient, they show up when it's costly. They show up not when everything's polished, but when everything's in process, when your heart's still healing, when your past is still present, when your dreams are still half built, when your confidence is shaky, and your trust hanging by a thread, and yet they stay. Not because they're blind to your flaws, but because they see your value in spite of them. See, we have this idea that love is only real when we're ready, when we've healed, when we've leveled up, when we've secured the job, fixed our issues, lost the baggage, gotten the therapy, found the rhythm and learned to trust again. We believe we have to be the best version of ourselves before we can receive real love. But can I tell you something? That's fear talking. Love doesn't wait for you to have it all together. Love doesn't come to applaud your perfection. It comes to stand beside you while you grow. You ever had someone show up for you during your low moment? Not when the camera was on. Not when you were killing it. Not when life was shiny and exciting, but when things were falling apart. Maybe you were depressed, maybe you were discouraged, maybe you were distant, confused, or grieving, and someone still checked in. Someone still leaned in. Someone still looked at you and said, I'm not going anywhere. That's not weak. That's not foolish. That's not naive. That's what love looks like when it's rooted, not rented. See, anybody can love you when it's easy. Anybody can stay when you're convenient. But when you're vulnerable, when your soul feels like a war zone, when your walls are high and your wounds are fresh, that's when the real ones reveal themselves. A soulmate isn't the person who loves the version of you that's polished. It's the one who sits with you in silence when you have no words. The one who sees past your defense mechanisms and says, I know you're pushing me away because you're scared, not because you, and instead of walking, they wait, not in pressure, not in pity, but in presence. They remind you that you're not too broken, that your story is still unfolding, that your healing isn't a deal breaker, it's just part of the journey. Imagine this. When your soul feels like a war zone, when your walls are high and your wounds are fresh, that's when the real ones reveal themselves. A soulmate isn't the person who loves the version of you that's polished. It's the one who sits with you in silence when you have no words. The one who sees past your defense mechanisms and says, I know you're pushing me away because you're scared, not because you, and instead of walking, they wait, not in pressure, not in pity, but in presence. They remind you that you're not too broken, that your story is still unfolding, that your healing isn't a deal breaker, it's just part of the journey. Imagine this. You're in a season of transition. You're not who you used to be, but you're not yet who you're becoming. You feel stretched, uncertain, and maybe even a little lost. You're showing up each day trying to give your best, but some days your best feels like barely hanging on. And in that space, they walk in. They don't try to fix you. They don't give you motivational speeches. They don't rush your process. They just see you. Not the Instagram version, not the version you pretend to be at church or at work, not the version that says I'm fine when you're really falling apart. They see the tears you don't post, the fears you don't share, the dreams you've buried because you're afraid they'll never come true. How to stand with you in yours. It's not about saving each other, it's about seeing each other. It's about walking together while grace does the heavy lifting. So stop waiting for perfect conditions before you believe someone can truly love you. Stop telling yourself you have to be more healed, more whole, more worthy, because the right person will see value in your vulnerability, not just your victories. They'll hold your hand on the hard days. They'll laugh with you when you forget how to smile. They'll speak life over you when your own voice is too tired to pray. That's what a soulmate collision looks like. It's not a fairy tale. It's a fight, not with each other, but for each other. So don't push them away just because you're still in process. Don't hide your scars when they were never meant to scare the right one off. Because the one who stays when it's messy, that's the one who's not just in love with your potential. They're in covenant with your process. Have you ever been in a room full of people and still felt alone? Like you're surrounded by voices, laughter, even love, and yet something's missing. That ache in your chest that can't be explained. That void that no attention can fill. That quiet craving in your soul for something deeper, something real, something that speaks not just to your emotions, but to your existence. That's the kind of emptiness that only purposeful connection can satisfy. See, when we talk about soulmates, we're not talking about someone who simply gives you butterflies. Butterflies fade. We're not talking about someone who texts back fast or likes all your posts. That's surface level stuff. We're talking about someone who pulls something out of you that was always there, but almost forgotten. That's what divine connection does. And when you start to doubt yourself, when you start to play small, when fear whispers you're not enough, they step in like a mirror and say, oh no, you forgot who you are. Let me remind you. Not with empty compliments, but with consistent clarity. They see what God put in you and they're not intimidated by it. They're inspired by it. They protect it. They water it. That's the difference between someone who flatters your ego and someone who fuels your elevation. Imagine you're sitting across from someone. You've had a long day. You're drained, discouraged, unsure if you're doing anything right in life. And instead of judging you or offering shallow fixes, they just look at you and say, you're more than this moment. I see a fire in you. I see a calling, and I'm here not to fix you, but to walk with you as you rise. That does something to a person. That kind of love doesn't just make you feel good. It makes you remember who you were born to be. A real soulmate brings focus back to your future. They don't just romanticize your past. They say, let's build forward. They don't just flirt with your heart. They challenge your habits. They don't just want to be around you. They want to see you win. You want to know how you've met the right one? It's when you're around them and you start dreaming again. You start taking your gifts seriously again. You start praying bolder, loving deeper, walking taller, not because they completed you, but because they called you. Called you out of survival mode. Called you out of stagnation. Called you out of small thinking. They don't compete with your calling. They complement it. They don't dim your light. They reflect it back with honor. Up to keep growing, to keep believing, even on the days you fall short. Because real love doesn't wait for you to become the full masterpiece. It loves the artist in you. The process, the evolving, the becoming. So here's the truth. God doesn't send people into your life just to make you feel good. He sends them to pull you deeper into purpose, into healing, into vision, into strength you didn't even know was inside you. And when that kind of person enters your life, you won't just feel attracted to them. You'll feel aligned. You'll feel seen. You'll feel safe to rise because they weren't sent to complete you. They were sent to remind you of the dream you buried, of the courage you forgot, of the calling you questioned, of the person God created you to be before fear got loud and life got hard. And when that happens, you'll understand why nothing else ever worked. Why every almost had to break. Why every closed door led you here. Because real soulmates don't just enter your story. They help you rewrite it. And their presence doesn't just bring love. It brings resurrection. The kind of love that doesn't just change your day, it changes your direction. You know what's wild? Some of the most divine connections in your life won't come softly. They won't knock politely and wait for you to open the door. They'll collide into your world like a sudden rainstorm on a clear day. Unexpected, undeniable, and unforgettable. That's because real soulmates don't tiptoe into your life, they interrupt it. Not out of chaos, but out of calling. It's like 1 minute, you're managing your life, you've got your routines, your coping mechanisms, your daily grind, you've figured out how to function in survival mode. And then, boom, Out of nowhere, someone steps in and shakes your spirit. Not with drama, but with divine disruption. You weren't even looking for it. You weren't trying to fall in love. Maybe you were actually trying to avoid it. Maybe you had already made peace with being alone, had built your life around solitude, had stacked your walls high and lined them with reasons to never let someone get too close again. But this person, they didn't just cross your path, they challenged your path. Not by controlling it, but by exposing how small you had made it. Because real soulmates don't leave you the same. They push you, they stretch you, they force you to confront the very things you've been avoiding. And it's not always romantic at first. It's reckoning. You find yourself asking questions you haven't asked in years. Why do I always run when it starts to feel real? Why do I shut down when someone actually cares? Why am I more comfortable with loneliness than with love? And that's how you know this isn't just chemistry, it's catalyst. It's the kind of relationship that doesn't just bring comfort, it brings confrontation, not of the toxic kind, not of the critical kind, but the holy kind, the kind that looks at your fear and gently says, you don't have to live this way anymore. The kind that sees your patterns and invites you into freedom, not frustration. Have you ever met someone who made you realize how much you were settling, not because they told you, but because they showed you? Because in their presence, your standards started rising. Your heart started softening. Your hope started growing. You started realizing that maybe, just maybe, God didn't create you to merely exist. He created you to collide with someone whose soul would awaken yours. But here's the thing about divine collisions. They're not always comfortable. They'll disrupt your rhythm. They'll mess with your plans. They'll expose your fears. They'll force you to choose between what's familiar and what's faithful. Because real love doesn't just make space in your schedule, it makes space in your spirit. And that takes courage. Because you can't hold on to your safety net and your soulmate at the same time. You can't keep hiding behind your hurt and step into healing. You can't protect your pain and embrace your promise. At some point, love will look you in the eyes and say, are you ready to let this in? And not just the person, but the possibility of being known, of being seen, of being fully loved without having to perform or pretend. And that's terrifying. But it's also transformational. That's the power of a real soulmate. They don't just love you for who you are. They hold up a mirror to show you who you're becoming. And you can try to ignore it. You can try to retreat. You can try to keep it casual and light and surface level. But something in your soul knows this isn't normal. This isn't ordinary. This is a collision, and you're never going to be the same. Because real love doesn't let you stay in hiding. It calls you out of the cave. It walks into your wilderness and says, even here I choose you. It's not scared of your story. It's not shocked by your scars. It's sacred. And sacred love won't always feel soft at first. Sometimes it feels like tension, like friction, like your soul being shaken awake. But that's what real connection does. It revives you. You laugh deeper. You listen closer. You walk lighter. You start letting go of what no longer serves the version of you that's finally alive. You stop entertaining the counterfeits. You stop rehearsing old wounds. You stop building your identity around fear. Because one person, just one, can awaken everything in you that you forgot was there. Not by magic, but by mirror. They don't save you, they see you. And that sight alone, that will disrupt everything you thought love had to be. It will wreck your walls and rebuild your worth. It will collide with your control and construct something far better, connection. The kind you can't fake, the kind you don't find every day, the kind that feels like God Himself reached into your routine and dropped something sacred right in front of you. And you're left standing there, breathless, realizing you weren't just seen, you were sent someone, not to complete you, but to collide with everything that was keeping you from being whole.